So every 2 years, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they report new findings on the prevalence of autism spectrum disorder, and every time the numbers are staggering. Check this out. Roughly 1 in 54 children in the U.S. is diagnosed with autism. Boys are 4 times as likely to be diagnosed as girls, and minorities, well, they tend to be diagnosed later in life and usually less often. While these statistics may be helpful for parents with young children, what about adults who believe they may be on the spectrum themselves? Now, unfortunately, there is no standard criteria to diagnose adults with autism, even though nationwide autism costs for adult services are almost double the amount given to adolescent services. So how can you navigate something like this, especially if a doctor tells you that you're perfectly normal? Like our next guest. She's a genius. She's great. Joining us live to talk about her journey and her new book, titled How Far You Have Come, Musings and Beauty and Courage, is acclaimed poet, artist, podcaster, musician, best-selling author. She does it all. Morgan Harper Nichols. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. It's amazing. I mean, like, I have a cousin who is living with autism. He's great, does everything he does. But you were diagnosed at the age of 31, and you said that you always knew that there was something different about you, but you just didn't know what it was. What were some of the things you can tell us about that you were experiencing maybe every day that made you feel that way?
Yeah, so from a young age, just a specific example is I have a hard time understanding like facial expressions. So as a kid, like when other kids would make jokes or they would say little things, I would never pick up on it. I was never in on inside jokes. And I always thought, I was like, okay, maybe I'll learn this as I get older. And then I got older and I'm like, I'm still struggling with, I feel like, what are really basic things. So it was very challenging because I could figure out how to kind of be present and be with everyone, but there was like all these little things. And now I know, being autistic, that a lot of people on the spectrum deal with different communication and social issues. And I just had no idea. I just thought it was something that a class I had missed in like second grade, and I was just gonna pick it up at some point later on. So yeah, it was a struggle for a while, and I'm so glad to finally know what a lot of these things are. So yeah.
And I want to talk about that in a second, but more, in the Black community, especially, a lot of times when it comes to issues that we have, when it comes to medical issues, we get misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. So when you were going to the doctors and you were feeling that something was wrong, what exactly were they telling you?
Yeah, so when I was in my late 20s, I was kind of like, a lot of the stuff I've been struggling with as a kid, I feel like I'm a real adult now and I feel like I'm still struggling. And I started to tell my doctor, I started to tell him what I was going through, and I was like, I think it could be possible that I'm on the spectrum. And before I could even get my sentence out, he was like, you're perfectly normal. You have nothing to worry about. And
Wow.
sadly, I believed him. And like you said, for a lot of Black people, a lot of Black women, that sadly, that is a very common experience. And I sadly just left the office and I just took his word for it. And it took me several years to find the courage again to come back to Google and find a specialist who would actually see me and listen to me. And that's what ultimately ended up leading to my diagnosis.
And it's crazy when you was it almost like a relief to say, "Oh, I know what it could," because you want to put something to it. You want to put
Yeah.
something's wrong. Somebody's telling you there's nothing wrong, but you almost feel relieved that you almost feel like, okay, now at least I know what it is. So what advice would you
Yes.
give to other people who have gone through something similar in their lives when it comes to dealing with the doctors and trying to be diagnosed properly?
Yes, yes. I would just say, whatever doctor's appointment you're walking into, just remember, for better or for worse, that is one person of
Hmm.
many. And the gift of the internet and technology now is, if you have access to the internet, a computer, you're able to Google and you're able to look at reviews and look at reviews of people that look like you. That's something that I do now, even if I'm going to go see an ear doctor or eye doctor. I scroll through and I'm like, has there been anyone that looks like me who's left a positive review? to, okay, maybe this is
Mm,
someone that I could see. And yeah, it's I hate that we have to do that. I hate that we can't just
right.
walk in and trust that we're going to get the information that we need. But the good thing is that, okay, I can take that power and go online and really figure out what's the best way to advocate for myself. And that's just something I'm still learning more and more. And I'm grateful for Google for helping me be able to find the person that I actually needed to see.
And we're grateful for you because it's important for people of your stature that has the platform that you have to be able to come out and speak on things like this so other people can speak up as well. Look, you're amazing. We're happy that you're on and how far you have come. This is your third book. It's about reclaiming the uncertainty in life and celebrating it as a symbol of hope. So how do you celebrate your daily life to remember how far you've actually come?
I have like a really practical thing that I do, and kind of going back to technology. I love scrolling through my phone, not scrolling through social media, seeing everyone else's highlights, but scrolling through my phone and looking for moments in my own life that I want to celebrate. So even if it was just a
Hmm.
picture of a sunrise that I took years ago, actually, the cover of the book is an iPhone photo that I took on a road trip years ago. And I'm like, there's so many little moments that you oftentimes don't recognize them as beautiful or important until you start looking back. So I have a 2-year old
Hmm.
son, and I'm right now I have photos on my phone that I just took passively in like the first few weeks of him being born. And I'm like, I want to blow these up and make these a whole moment in our house. So I think that that's the beauty of reflection, is that we do have time to be able to look back and find those small things that say, hey, amidst everything that's going on, amidst all the uncertainty, I do still have these good parts of my story that I want to own and spend time being grateful for. So yeah, I try to spend a lot of time looking back and really spending time remembering the good.
Yeah, it's important to remember how far you've come. People look so far ahead and look at how far you got to go, but when you realize the
Yeah.
journey, how far you've come and where you are, you're where you're supposed to be right now, and
Yeah.
you still have an opportunity to even move forward. Hey, the book is How Far You Have Come, Musings on Beauty and Courage. We appreciate you. We love you. We admire
Thank
you.
you.
The author, of course, is the lady that's right next to me, Morgan Harper Nichols. Thank you for joining us this morning and starting your day with us. Come back anytime.